Hello and welcome to Uzreport News. I'm Barno Nazarzada. President of Uzbekistan Shavkat Mirziyoyev addressed his regular message to the chambers of the Oliy Majlis at the International Congress Center in Tashkent today. His first such address as a newly elected president was held on December 22nd, 3 years ago. The head of state addressed the lawmakers with his second message on December 28 in 2018. With their comprehensive agenda and large-scale tasks, these reports attract close attention of the public in our country and entire world. In today's speech, Shavkat Mirziyoyev summed up the work done during 2019 and identified priorities for the current year.
The head of state began his speech with the results of recent parliamentary elections, noting the importance of activity and cohesion of the population. Native Uzbekistan is entering a new decade. Our achievements become history, the life is setting new requirements, and there are great opportunities for even deeper transformations. Therefore, today we should set priorities and tasks for the country's development in 2020 and for the next 5 years as a whole. Following the results of recent election campaign under the slogan "New Uzbekistan, New Elections," a new political atmosphere has been formed in the Republic, which makes it possible to raise ongoing democratic reforms to a high level, the president said. At the same time, Mirziyoyev noted important tasks in this direction. We have set such a high goal as building a new Uzbekistan together with our people. Along this path, a new principle is being more and more profoundly asserted in our life. The initiator of reforms is society itself. The deputies should understand that all their activities should be aimed at serving the people. The head of state also stresses that increasing the political activity of parties remains an urgent task. At the same time, it's necessary to further optimize the three-stage system of elections to local kingashs, while increasing the role of district and city commissions. I would like to appeal to all the deputies and senators, and in their person to the entire people of Uzbekistan, that democratic reforms are the only right way for us, the president said.
I should first of all note that the address of the president to the parliament was very analytical, was very broad, because all those initiatives addressed were the ones which touch upon every citizen of Uzbekistan, as they are related both to internal affairs and external affairs.
The head of state in his address, having critically analyzed the work done last year, emphasized the following. First, managers at all levels should not relax and indulge in euphoria on the first positive results achieved. The main goal of the new parliament and government for the next 5 years is to improve the living standards of our multi-ethnic people. In this regard, I would like to appeal to the distinguished deputies. It is necessary to develop and implement, together with the responsible departments, specific programs and roadmaps to address topical issues raised by the population during pre-election meetings. Otherwise, deputies may lose the trust, and parties may lose their credibility. After all, today the thinking, worldview and needs of our people have changed dramatically. Secondly, we have a lot to do to improve the quality of management system and fully establish the fundamental principle in society. Not the people should serve the state bodies, but the state bodies should serve the people. The fact that the virtual and people's receptions of the president receive more than 1 million requests from citizens every year indicates the need to raise a dialogue with the people to a new level. Each deputy should constantly interact with people's appeals and actively participate in solving the problems of the population. Only in this way the deputies will be able to fulfill their promises, justify the trust of the people and win their respect. Third, we have set a goal to join a number of developed countries, and we can achieve it only by implementing accelerated reforms, relying on science, education and innovation. To do this, we first need to educate the new formation of personnel who are the initiators of reforms, who have a strategic vision, deep knowledge and high qualifications. That is why we have started reforming all levels of education, from preschool to higher education. Science and education are of paramount importance for improving the intellectual and spiritual potential of not only young people, but also our entire society.
The president in his address also talked on the education sector. In order to raise the quality of education to the level of international requirements, a number of measures yet to be developed and implemented. Among other topics, he also shared plans with public to establish 348 basic schools, 147 colleges and 143 technical schools. The president also spoke about the importance of fundamental improvement of education in universities. He quoted ancient thinkers saying, "The greatest wealth is intelligence and science, and the greatest inheritance is knowledge. The greatest poverty is lack of knowledge. Following these ideas, the President proposed to name year 2020 as the year of science development, education, and the digital economy.
At the initiative of the first president of our country, there is a good tradition to give each year a specific name, develop a special state program, and implement comprehensive measures. According to tradition, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, during his address to the Oliy Majlis, proposed to name 2020 in our country the year of science, education, and digital economy.
Today, there are 13,500 preschool educational institutions in Uzbekistan. In 2019, the coverage of children in the system of Ministry of Preschool Education increased to 52% compared to 38% in 2018. 5,522 public, private and family preschool educational institutions were established last year alone. In 2020, this figure is set to reach 60%. Almost 2 trillion soums will be allocated for this purpose. Reforms are underway at all levels of education. Where there is no knowledge, there is ignorance, and the wrong way. We need science, education, and high spirituality. The best legacy is education. Time has come to correct the mistakes made in this direction, Shavkat Mirziyoyev said. He also noted the role of ICT and modern knowledge. Most ministers, departments and organizations are completely far from being digital technologies. They do not strive for development. Such leaders have no future. Tomorrow, we will draw our own conclusions. We have set a goal to enter a number of developed countries, and we will be able to enter this list only through accelerated reforms and the development of science. With this in mind, we need new specialists. Therefore, we have started reforms at all levels of education. We must master new knowledge and innovative technologies in depth. This will make it possible to follow the shortest path of progress, the head of state said.
Today, in his address, our president declared a very comprehensive program for development of our country for upcoming 5 years. And it's a great opportunity that he declared this year as a year of science, education, and the development of digital economy, because this creates a lot of opportunities for our younger generation. As a country, Uzbekistan, which is a double landlocked country, and we have lots of human potential, we have to focus more on ICT development. And today's announcement of the year, I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for our younger generation, since this is one of the only ways by which we can create the necessary jobs for our kids. They don't have to, only using ICT, they don't have to physically move out from country, but they can find the very high-paid jobs inside the country and work for the outsourcing companies. And therefore, the development of the digital economy, I think, is creating many job opportunities, and I think this is also very good for school children, because, as you know, we have increased opportunities for higher education up to 20%. But today, President declares that we are going to increase it up to 25 or even 50% by 2030. But still, we have around 80% of kids who are not able to continue their education in higher education. So ICT can create them opportunities to find the good jobs.
Major reforms were announced in the sphere of higher education. For example, the number of state grants is expected to double. Girls will be able to enjoy separate grants. Higher education coverage should not be at the expense of paid tuition, the president said. It's planned to revise the training system and simplify the admission conditions. Universities should provide real demand for knowledge, he said. A national test system for evaluating the native language will be introduced. Students will be able to take this exam at any time and get a certificate, and they will not have to take the test again. Higher education standards will be improved, disciplines will be revised, and new textbooks will be created. The number of disciplines that are not related to the specialty will be halved, the president said. It's planned to switch to a credit modular system of education in higher education institutions. Universities will be given academic and financial independence in these stages. This year, 10 universities will switch to self-financing. At least 5 universities will start a transformation together with foreign universities. The state will cover the lion's share of funding. It's necessary to determine the priorities in the field of science because it's impossible to cover all areas at once, the President said. Each year, attention will be paid to the development of several areas of science. In 2020, there are mathematics, chemistry, biology and geology.
Shavkat Mirziyoyev called corruption the main drawback of the country that hinders its development. If we do not eliminate this phenomenon, we will not be able to create a really favorable investment and business climate. No sphere will develop if there is corruption, the President said.
Mr. McGregor, what initiatives of President Shavkat Mirziyoyev impressed you today?
Oh my goodness, there was a whole long list. I filled my book with notes of things that I think are really important. But corruption was a huge issue, and it's one that the OSCE has been working on for many years across the OSCE area. So it's a difficult thing to stop. But it takes a change of culture. We have to think about different ways of doing business and living our lives in society. And so businesses have to start realizing that they should not be engaging in corruption to advance their business interests. And people across society need to think that I'm not going to put up with that corruption anymore. Whether it's local, whether it's national, doesn't matter. It's wrong. And it's like a sickness that eats away at business opportunity, it eats away at society, and it stops our reforms. And this is a really big issue for us, and the OSCE is very pleased with that. I was particularly taken with his comments about justice and rule of law. And of course, he's always said that rule of law and economic growth go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. But justice, he really had some strong feelings about that. And I like the point he made about when you walk into a courthouse, you should feel that there's justice happening in that courthouse. That's a very strong statement. And he also mentioned the point, I mean, among many others, but one of the key ones that the reforms are for the people. And that every person, every family in this country needs to feel the reforms, that they're having an impact for them. So then it's up to the leadership. It's up to leaders across government, across society, to certainly the parliamentarians, the newly elected members of the Oliy Majlis lower chamber and the newly elected senators to really make a difference. So they need to think about how they can change the leadership of themselves and others across the country, be more dynamic, looking at new ways of managing things, getting away from the old ways of doing business. As the President said, get out of the office and go out there and manage and lead this change. Encourage people to talk and listen to people who can contribute to these reforms. So lots of things for everybody to think about, and I'm really pleased. It's a very dynamic and very impressive speech. And I could even say a couple of words in Uzbek language. Men Uzbek tilida kapirman. U nutga muhim bulda. U nutka joshkin bulda. U nutka tarihi bulda. U nutka chingildan bulda.
Until the whole society is vaccinated with the vaccine of honesty, we will not be able to achieve our goals. The biggest question is where do we get this honesty vaccine? Further, the head of state noted that he doesn't believe that the heads of regions and various structures do not know about the presence of corruption in their fields. And he proposed creating an anti-corruption body accountable to the parliament and the president. This will allow us to examine under a microscope every fact of the manifestation of this defect. The anti-corruption body should be headed by a very responsible person and a true patriot of his country, the president concluded.
The president also spoke about the main tasks in the economic sphere set for this year, including ensuring macroeconomic stability and curbing inflation. With this in mind, special attention should be paid to the reducing prices and improving the quality of products through keeping high competition between entrepreneurs, the head of state said. The tasks for implementing the digital economy were also announced.
Another area that is expected to undergo radical changes is a registration system. By April 1st, the President instructed the Parliament and the government to study international experience and prepare proposals for its reform. He noted the existing gap between regions where working-age population is concentrated and the regions where employment opportunities are available. We haven't been able to solve this problem for 30 years, the President said. I have a dream, a goal that every family has its own house, its own apartment. The most difficult thing is to buy a house. Many of you probably have come from the regions and you are familiar with these problems. This way, we will ensure the realization of fundamental rights to own housing, the President said. The task of reducing the level of poverty throughout the country was also touched upon separately. In this direction, poverty reduction program will be worked out jointly with the World Bank and other international institutions.
We just have heard very important statement of President of Uzbekistan covering the issues of future development. And what struck me a lot, first of all, that it's created absolutely new paradigm of the Uzbekistan development in coming 10 years. I would not limit it to the 5 years. As you said, I think that it's beyond 5 years because first of all, President proposed to announce next year as a year of science and enlightenment. It means, first of all, to admit the fact that the first industrial revolution is unfolding in the world. It means that Uzbekistan also should change this very character of its development and apply science to every region, to every branch of economy. And his emphasis on education, including continuous education, this is very, very important. This statement, I'd like to tell you, it was very fair, open. First time the leader of the state admitted the existence of poverty in Uzbekistan. And he said that we need to address the issue of low income. And not only it was an appeal to do that, but at the same time, he showed how to do it through education, creating the job, supporting entrepreneurship, as you said, upgrading the business skill, etc. And to my mind, one of the most important conclusions from this statement today is that reformation of Uzbekistan is going to deepen and broaden and go on and on and on. The previous 3 years created the foundation, basics for the next steps. And I think that what's been said today in such spheres like privatization of banks, abolishing of propiska, notorious legacy of the Soviet past, or what been said about the transportation system, further privatization in the industry and agriculture. In agriculture, he said it's time for us to stop the state order to the cotton and wheat production. This is absolutely new way of running the state. That's why I am completely sure that this statement opens up new horizon for Uzbekistan development, and it's very convincing. It demonstrates the vision of President, and I'm sure that all together, Parliament, government, being supported by the civil society, by the whole Uzbek people, will achieve the goals defined today.
Shavkat Mirziyoyev said that salaries, pensions and benefits will increase ahead of the rate of inflation. Shavkat Mirziyoyev said that salaries, pensions and benefits will increase ahead of the rate of inflation. He acknowledged that there were corruption factors in the process that led to the dismissals. We pay great attention to the issues of registration of pensions. You have to prepare a huge package of documents. In the new system, it will be enough for citizens to show their passports, the head of state said. In addition, the concept of social protection of population will be developed. According to the head of state, the procedure for licensing and issuing permits will undergo cardinal changes. Among the nearly 280 licenses and permits, there are those that exist only for collecting payments and exercising control, the President said. By April the 1st, he instructed to review the basis for issuing licenses and permits to make proposals to reduce them by at least twice. The moratorium on inspections of entrepreneurs has expired. But this doesn't mean that it's necessary to start interfering in the activities again, he stressed. Inspections should only be an extreme measure. In the last 3 years, only 3 companies were subject to rehabilitation. Starting this year, Uzbekistan will abandon this procedure and introduce a completely new system for improving insolvent enterprises. Agriculture should be developed on the basis of strategic approach. The growth rate in this area does not satisfy us at all, Shavkat Mirziyoyev said in a message to the parliament. Until we implement market mechanisms in the industry and increase the interest of farmers, no breakthrough is expected, he said.
Based on the study of international experience, it is necessary to open the way for the private sector. We need to update the law on natural monopolies and develop a strategy, the head of state said. The president instructed the government to prepare draft laws on state financial control and public debt. Until we eliminate the shadow economy, there can be no question of creating healthy competition and a favorable business climate. The cabinet of ministers was instructed to analyze the factors of the shadow economy and approve the action program. It is important to critically review the system of electronic government, said Mirziyoyev. An IT park with modern infrastructure is being created in Tashkent. We are already witnessing its results. The same parks will be created in Nukus, Bukhara, Namangan, Samarkand, Gulistan and Urgench. In order to constantly be competitive, we must constantly work. We have set very high targets and agreed with our foreign partners. Great results will be achieved over the next 3-4 years. Digital Uzbekistan 2030 program is currently being developed.
The president talked about the digitalization of the whole economy of Uzbekistan and how your capital market can offer something in this sphere, and what can you do in this year?
As you know, the global markets at the moment are going through transformation. The year of internet and technologies making it very easy for capital to move from one place to another. So the job for our agency is to utilize all the potential of technology. You know, this is a modern trading system. This is linkages between the settlement system globally to allow for utilization and attracting capital investments into domestic capital markets, domestic stock exchange, domestic private equity markets, even the bitcoins and all the digital tokens that are available. So I think for us, if we want to grow further, if we want to grow our economy, and if we want to catch up with our neighbors, the best way to do it is utilize available technology. And luckily, the way financial markets structured right now globally, you can link yourself with global markets in New York, in London, in Hong Kong, and allow foreign investors to come and invest in Uzbekistan, in our securities, in our investment products. So for us, we need to use this opportunity. We need to use the opportunity given by the president, identifying digitalization as a key priority, and feed that into capital market and create new security instruments, new investment products using best technology. As you know, for example, Korean Stock Exchange owns 25% of our Republican Stock Exchange in Tashkent. We're now in discussions with our Korean partners to allow them to increase their ownership of the exchange so they can utilize their technology. We're already using their back-end infrastructure, but we want to introduce their products, but that requires the know-how. So we already set up a good relationship with Inha University, for example, with the developers at Inha University, who also, as you know, Inha is a Korean university. So we need to build on that capacity and attract more talent and allow our programmers to participate.
So President talked about the program, 1 million programmers. How this can affect your capital market?
Look, capital markets today, if you look at the NASDAQ, it's one of the biggest stock exchanges in the world. It's a technology company. Okay? What they do is they provide architecture, they provide infrastructure, and allow for users to connect. We need to do the same thing. But what we lack is human capacity. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough programmers. So with the president's support and his ambition to increase the number of programmers, I'm sure it will make our job easier to develop our domestic capacity and allow our investors, our brokers and dealers to start building the software and programs. Right now, unfortunately, our users, let's say investors in stock market, don't even have applications, to trade globally. You can connect to a financial market system through your telephone. Okay, but the problem we have is we don't have enough people to do that. So I'm hoping with the effort on digitalization and focus on increasing the technology capacity, this will have direct impact on capital markets, which means we can mobilize financing, we can mobilize investments and feed that into our economy.
The last my question is about how much it will take to make this process work.
Look, the biggest obstacle, I'll tell you, is feeding into legal foundation, legal framework, the laws. Unfortunately, amending and changing laws take time. That's the biggest bottleneck. So I'm hoping that with more focus on our parliamentary arm and the more capacity in parliamentary arm, it will be easier for us to introduce new laws. And I'm hoping to have more cooperation with Oliy Majlis, with the Senate, so we can introduce legislative changes much quicker.
Prime Minister will soon have deputy responsible for information technology and digitalization. All above mentioned are not just words. We intend to make institutional change, the President concluded. Particular attention was paid to cooperation between Uzbekistan and the Eurasian Economic Union. The issue of establishing interaction between Uzbekistan and the Eurasian Economic Union is being studied. We have been working on this issue for a year. An in-depth analysis is carried out. First of all, we will proceed from the interests of our people. Whatever initiatives the government offers, the President, you should study this issue from the point of view of the interests of the people.
The President has said that the major criteria to enter Eurasian Economic Union are being studied. In addition, required documents are being prepared for entry into WTO. How can this affect foreign trade?
Well, first of all, we have to understand, we have to clearly realize that without integration of Uzbek economy into world economy, it's impossible to talk about serious increase of the volumes of the foreign trade. Because of the globalization processes which are happening in the world economy, in the scheme of world economy. So we are now in the process of accession to WTO. You are right, and we are working closely with our partners from WTO, from member countries. Last year we've submitted memorandum on foreign trade regime to WTO headquarters, and now we are in the process of answering the questions which we received from the member countries. And our aim is to hold next fourth working group meeting or session of devoted to Uzbekistan's accession to WTO in March this year. Yes, you are right. President also mentioned about potential involvement or cooperation of Uzbekistan with other integration unions, like, for example, Eurasian Economic Union or others. In this regard, of course, if you noticed, President several times mentioned that we will only do whatever is in the best interest of the Uzbek nation. So I'm sure that study is still ongoing, so we still haven't completed it. And if we feel that there is a benefit for our nation, for our people, for our economy, then of course we will make some steps. When I say we, I mean Uzbek government and Uzbekistan as a whole. But overall, of course, we are learning the possibility of being involved in some sort of integration processes with our neighbor countries. We have a number of other initiatives, like there is Belt and Road Initiative. We are working closely, and President mentioned this, with the European Union to renew our major agreement which we have with them. So we're working on that as well. We are also trying to become a beneficiary on the GSP Plus system in the European Union. So when we talk about integration, of course, we shouldn't focus on something, narrow. So it means that we want to integrate Uzbek economy into world economy, and we want to use different types of integration, and we want to have trade relations and develop trade relations with all our strategic and partners, which are located basically in all the continents of the world.
The head of state also noted that along with this, Uzbekistan will continue the dialogue with the World Trade Organization and the European Union on concluding a new partnership and cooperation agreement.
The President has said that the major criteria to enter Eurasian Economic Union are being studied. In addition, required documents are being prepared for entry into the WTO. How can this affect foreign trade? How do you think?
Well, the president paid a lot of attention to the integration of Uzbekistan to different international economic organizations, and he mentioned specifically Eurasian Economic Union as well as the accession of Uzbekistan to WTO. It is very understandable and natural for Uzbekistan to become a very integral part of the economic system, both global and regional one. And the president paid special attention and drew attention actually of the public for the last 3 years. We are spending a lot of time, investment for the restructuring of economy, and now we are capable of increasing our export capabilities quite dramatically. But the question is where to sell it, where to export, how we can utilize our transport potential. For all those questions, the answer would be yes, we need to integrate to different economic unions, different economic organizations. Regarding the Eurasian Economic Union, he mentioned that we are still studying this issue. Previously, he mentioned that most probably we will be joining the organization as an observer and to see what are the plus and minuses. And now the request and address to the parliament was that it is up to you, the parliamentarians, to decide, to make a final decision whether we'll assess it or not. It's up to you to make calculation, to make analysis, work very closely with the executive power, and then to decide.
Yeah.
But I believe we have to look very seriously, and we have to synchronize our efforts both to the accession of WTO and Eurasian Economic Union, because it is immediate neighborhood, it is a much farther neighborhood, but both organizations are now playing a very crucial role in the context of modern Uzbekistan. And our economic potential, of course, will serve the next goal, of course, further democratization, which is impossible without a very robust economic growth.
In his address to the parliament, the president also touched upon the banking sector. We need to take decisive measures to develop the banking system, which is 10-15 years behind in implementing digital technologies, the head of state said. Starting in 2020, each bank will start transformation processes. Our banks cannot cope with the preparation of projects yet. A project factory will be established in the banks. Our banks must enter international financial markets. We need motivated managers. It is important to build public confidence in banks and to exclude interference in the activities of banks from the government bodies. And finally, the banks have to operate in accordance with international standards, Shavkat Mirziyoyev said.
Well, first of all, is a great day today because I watched the annual address by Mr. President, and I was actually watching it on Uzreport World, a new streaming TV channel over the internet with a proper English translation, and it was great to hear the reforms that Mr. President is now initiating across the board. I should mention, the liberalization of economy, the push for foreign investments, and of course, the company has to grow the GDP, different sectors, transform the both economy and in infrastructure as well. I hear a lot of positive things about new legal framework, a better tax system, a lot of investments in infrastructure and education. I should praise the government of very aggressive push towards foreign investments as well. I think the executive powers, the legislative powers, and the courts should work together with the media. The idea of announcing the 2020 as a year for digital economy and science is a good one. We personally invested in IT sector in Uzbekistan. A couple of years ago, we acquired a stake in an IT company here in Tashkent. We now have over 50 developers and designers, and we're going to invest more. And hopefully this announcement and the stimulus given to IT sector would bring more skills to the sector. You definitely need young people to be educated how to code, how to design applications and software. I guess Uzbekistan needs to export skills, export services, high value added know-how, not just raw materials but technology as well. And I think you're moving into the right direction with these initiatives by the President.
This is all we have for today. Thank you for staying with us. Goodbye.